There is a quiet confusion a lot of faithful men carry. They did what they were told. They got married, they stay committed, and yet desire did not disappear. Instead of freedom, many found silence, tension, and a body that never quite learned how to relax. Welcome to Mind Over Masculinity, the space where we question the stories men were handed and make room for something more honest, grounded, and humane. I'm Yusuf, and today I'm joined by Juno Thorne, author of Sacred Freedom, a book that explores how purity culture has shaped men's relationship with desire, faith, and their own bodies. In this conversation, we are unpacking a belief many men never consciously choose, but still live inside of. The idea that faithfulness means eliminating desire and that attraction itself is a moral failure. We are exploring what happens when men carry that belief long after the wedding day. And with that, I welcome my guest Juno Thorne to the show.
Thank you for having me.
June, before we get into framework and language, I'm curious, when did you first realize that marriage had not resolved the tension you were promised?
Uh, well, it took many, many years to come to that realization. Um,
Mm.
when I was younger, before I was married, um, obviously I was attracted to lots of women. And that was normal because that's how you uh were going to find a spouse or a mate, right? Um, but you couldn't exercise any of that attraction other than, dating and pursuit and things like that. But then when you get into marriage, they told you, or at least the church told me, that all of those desires would go away and that all of my attraction would be done focused through my spouse, which is the only, um, morally righteous way to channel those feelings. But the attraction and desire for other women never really went away. Um, and so there was this sense that, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. Is there, maybe I need to pray more, do more quiet times, y- just try harder. And nothing really seemed to work. And, this went on for a good 15 years of marriage, um, before I ever started to realize maybe there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe what I'm being asked to do is what's wrong.
Mm, yeah, true. So there is this unspoken assumption that if a man is faithful, attraction should simply, shut off. Where do you think that belief comes from? And why has it held so much power in religious spaces?
Um, so I've asked this question a lot over the last few years, and I think it has two origins. Um, One is culturally, um, our culture, especially Western European countries, have bought into this idea of the soulmate, where it shows you in the Disney movies or the Hollywood movies where you find somebody, you're attracted to them, you fall in love, and you know you connect on virtually every level. They're going to become your partner, your emotional safe place, your confidant, your business partner, your romantic muse, um,
Mm,
all these different things. And so they, like, uh in that movie where he says, "You complete me," with Tom Cruise. That is kind of the culture that we live in. And so that by definition then kind of makes exclusivity um an implicit assumption about the way relationships are supposed to be. But then what the church did is they said, "Oh, this is great. We need to preserve heterosexual marriage as God's design for mankind. Let's
Mm,
play into this and let's really hone into this and make this a black and white. This is what marriage means." Um,
mm,
and so then they kind of weaponize that cultural construct into a way where even your thoughts and desires that are simply just inside of your mind can become sin and signs of a failing marriage or moral failure. And and then that is how it enters the mind as a battle inside of the mind.
mm. Okay. So instead of faithfulness being about integrity and choice, it becomes about impossibility, and the gap between expectation and reality quietly turns into shame. Did I get it right?
Well, yeah, so if your thoughts and desires that you have now according to the church
Mm,
are moral failings, you're sinning, um now your just natural human thoughts become a source of shame, right?
mm.
Because you realize, "Oh, I'm constantly sinning. There must be something wrong with me. Why am I feeling this way? Why do I have these sinful desires?" Um, and so what you then do is you train yourself, you train your body to say, "No, you can't do this. You can't feel this." But your body's like, "Dude, this is just the way I work. Stop making me, feel bad for the way I'm uh, attracted to these people." And so there then becomes this internal conflict, and you then become divided internally. Uh, and so there are these books. I read one of these books, Every Man's Battle. I don't remember the author's name, but I really took that book to heart, along with John Eldridge's Wild at Heart, a long time ago in my 20s. And those books really scarred me, um, because they're the ones that really solidified this internal battle and made it into a battle. Um,
Mm.
and so then you just walk around feeling like there's something wrong with me. And then you start to think, well, what's wrong with my marriage? What's wrong with my wife? Did I choose wrong? Did I choose the wrong partner? Um, and it's just this cascading set of emotions that then go through your mind, and it just makes you feel horrible about yourself.
Yeah. Purity culture did not just regulate behavior. I think it trained men to monitor their inner world. How did that shape men's relationship with their thoughts and their bodies?
Um, well, it's kind of what I was just saying, in that they their body and their thoughts are suspect.
Mm,
And so you're constantly monitoring your thoughts, you're policing your thoughts. That book I was mentioning, Every Man's Battle, what it tells you to do is to bounce your eyes. So if you see an attractive woman and you start to and you notice her and you're like, "Oh, she's attractive." Well, that book says you need to bounce your eyes, because if you look at her too long, then you're going to end up sinning, right?
yeah.
And so this is like, it's really twisted, because this is how we end up with a culture that then tells women to cover up, to dress super modest,
Yeah.
because it's as if we're telling them they're responsible for keeping us from sinning, which obviously sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly what they are doing and asking of these women.
Mm, that paints a very powerful picture. Men are not just suppressing desire, they are living in a low grade state of threat inside their own minds and bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. They're not in a safe place. Uh, and then that actually makes it so that their relationship with their spouse is no longer safe because they have to constantly monitor their thoughts and feelings and what they say and don't say, because it could be perceived as a threat to the stability of the relationship.
Mm, yes. You reframe desire not as a sin, but as signal. Can you walk us through what desire might actually be pointing towards when it is approached with honesty instead of fear?
Yeah. So, um, if we've been talking about what desire looks like as a sin, right? Now let's take a step back and say, okay, if we are human beings, right? If we're wired to procreate, to multiply, to survive as a species, right? Well, then what is desire actually? Well, it's the desire to procreate, to um get together with other people and continue our species, right? Um
Mm.
and so if that's what it really is, then you can then take that and say, okay, now say I see a pretty woman walking down the street. Um,
Mm.
in my old framework, I might notice her and then say, oh, don't look at her. You could sin, right? Now, what you could do is you could look at her and say, that's a beautiful woman. And
Mm.
she's really pretty, and just experience her beauty. I think we all want to experience beauty in the world. I don't think there's quite enough of it. Um,
Yeah.
and so if you can take that in without turning her into an object of your pleasure, um, without objectifying her, there is nothing wrong with that. That's part of the beauty of being human. Um, Now you can certainly take it too far and basically remove her as a person and turn her into an object of your gratification and satisfaction. And
Mm.
now you have removed her from the equation. And that is actually what Jesus is calling us to not do. Um, but Jesus's um, permission for what's appropriate humane behavior uh, goes far beyond what the church has limited it to be.
Mm. It's- That is so important because this is not about indulgence. It is about maturity and learning how to stay present without self betrayal or objectifying the person.
Yeah, I agree. It took me a while to piece this all together without having the church's um, opinions dictate how I thought about it.
Yeah. June, for listeners who want to explore your work further, where the best place to find them?
So you can find me on at my webpage, junobthorne.com. And I've written about this story and everything that we're talking about. I've documented it. I've done a lot of research to try to understand what it means to be human, my theological investigation of what the Bible may actually say, um, and my personal path down this road of self discovery and freedom. I published all of this in my book, Sacred Freedom, and you can find it on Amazon.
Okay, perfect. And to everyone listening, all these links are in the show notes. So just go and check those out. June, is there any last message that you want us to leave with?
Um, Perhaps for those people that are resonating with this, I'd like you to know that you're not alone. Other people feel exactly the same way. People that have read my book have said, "How is it that you um, know all this about me?" It's as if you're reading my thoughts. So I want you to know there's nothing wrong with you. You're normal. You're human. These are normal thoughts. And you don't have to feel ashamed of them anymore.
Okay. June, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation on mind over masculinity.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And to everyone listening, if today's conversation stirs something in you, stay with it. You are not late, you are not defective, and you are not alone. And faithfulness is not the absence of desire, it is the presence of honesty, responsibility, and a body that no longer has to live in hiding. This is mind over masculinity, where strength begins with truth. And we'll see you the next time.